Hi, my name is Ilya Zlotnik, advisor and partner with Vivaldi Capital Management and your host to Journeys to the Summit. And today I have a good friend, climbing partner, no surprise there, and healthcare entrepreneur, Ian Strug, joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Ilya. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, looking forward to having today's conversation. And since the title of this podcast is Journeys to the Summit, I do want to mention that a couple years ago we had an epic trip to this little place called Lillooet in Canada, 6 hours north of Vancouver, where we had an epic climb of North America's largest, boldest sport route. 3,000 feet of elevation. Still to this day, my biggest climb in one day. I'm assuming yours as well.
Very much so.
Now, however, I want to run that back with you at one point in the future somewhere. I know that part of your life has slowed down a bit. You have a one-year-old,
I do.
which we talked about. So that's keeping your hands full. However, the proverbial entrepreneurial summit is in full force.
Yes.
And that's what we're going to talk about today.
Awesome.
So you're doing some really cool stuff in the healthcare space. And just to maybe back it up to maybe the beginning or close to the beginning where your journey started in undergrad. Initially, you were looking to get your PhD in the literary world. You pivoted to business.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that part of your life and that what launched you into the business world.
Yeah. So, like you said, coming out of college at Vanderbilt, my sights were really set on an academic career, and that's what I thought interested me most. I was really lucky to have some great advisors at Vanderbilt that encouraged me to look at other opportunities before going to grad school and really putting all my eggs in that basket. But as a result of not having really considered working in the commercial space at all, graduation came and I didn't quite have anything to do. So, growing up, I was in Boy Scouts and did a lot of charity work. And I always knew that if I had a job, I didn't want to do something that didn't have a pretty direct benefit to the people around me. And so working in healthcare seemed like a good place to spend that time. Interestingly enough, my mom also works in healthcare technology. And so I was talking to her about her company and stumbled across this company in Madison, Wisconsin called Epic, which is really now considered the world's leader in the electronic health record space. So software that's used by physicians and all of the folks that really manage operations at a hospital or a clinic. I then noticed that I had some friends that worked there from Vanderbilt. They recruited heavily, and I was able to go up there, check it out. It was a beautiful campus. Madison's a wonderful city. And it seemed like a great place to land. And as it turns out, it was really the start of a now 15 plus year career in healthcare technology. It's where I've been my entire career. It was a wonderful place to start, and I learned an incredible amount. But after a period of time, I also started thinking about healthcare in a more macro sensibility and really came to believe that although Epic was the market leader in its space, you're only really getting one perspective on healthcare when you're working at a vendor of that size. And I thought it was important from a career perspective to really understand how healthcare worked more holistically, not, how do people do things that aren't using the software? How do physicians think about their world? How do more patients think about the care they're receiving? And so from there, I was able to transition out of Epic, moved to Washington, D.C., and started in management consulting.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, your background in the academic world, at least in undergrad and going for your PhD, at least the beginning stages of it as an undergrad, how did that shape you and help you in the business world?
So as someone who was interested in doing a PhD in humanities, effectively, you can likely guess that my undergraduate majors were similar.
Yeah.
So although I've spent the vast majority of my career on the technology side of healthcare and the entirety of my career in healthcare, I studied English, history, and political science.
Yeah.
And so you might think that that has no resonance with the scientific world. And again, I don't do hard science. I'm surrounded by wonderfully smart people that do really cool bleeding edge things.
Yeah.
And that's incredibly inspiring to me. That's not how my brain works. What I truly believe is that a liberal arts education like that which I received provides you with the tool sets to accommodate a lot of inputs and make good decisions. So it teaches you how to think, right? It teaches you how to express yourself, how to create and form an idea, and how to then demonstrate that in practice, whether that's through a deliverable or just the way you carry yourself, the way you speak or write. Also, again, having the opportunity to surround myself with super smart people doing really interesting things is continuously inspiring. But at the end of the day, I don't feel like I missed anything in my education from a scientific perspective. Rather, I feel like it really just gave me these tools to learn quickly and accommodate new information and then know what to do with that.
Yeah. Likely makes you a more well-rounded person. I mean, I think about myself. I studied finance in undergrad, finance in my MBA, and I've been surrounded with finance. And, I think I know a lot about finance, but having that well-rounded background, and I try to read a lot, it's kind of similar in the mindset of making you a better professional.
Right.
Ultimately.
Right. And especially nowadays with everything that's happening, publicly and in politics, and obviously we're not here to talk about politics.
Yeah.
But there are so many things happening now that really make me feel that much more strongly that it's important to have a good backing in history. And when you see things happening, you can say, wow, that seems a lot like what happened 80 years ago somewhere else.
Yeah.
And really understanding that we really can only stop making certain mistakes if we're willing to learn from those that have already been made.
Couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I think the study of history is so critical because ultimately humans, although technology advances, don't change much and make the same mistakes over and over again. And it's easier to spot those mistakes when you know what the mistakes have been made in the past 100 years, thousand years, 2,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you decided to transition to management consulting. So talk a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, so I joined Deloitte Consulting in Washington, D.C., which is obviously replete with consultants serving the federal government. Deloitte had a massive exposure there. I was on the commercial side, so I was working with healthcare providers, and that's been my target market my entire career, right?
Yeah.
So really serving leading healthcare systems. Speaking of finance, I really got my start in healthcare from the perspective of revenue cycle and corporate finance.
Okay.
And so my interaction with the clinical space was somewhat limited until about 2016 when I co-founded my first startup. But what was really interesting about learning about the revenue cycle space was really understanding what drives value for a healthcare provider system when they're making decisions about what they're purchasing and how they're rendering care. Because at the end of the day, when you're only paid for something after you do it, you need cash flows in order to continue supporting that work.
Absolutely.
Right? So almost every decision is deeply rooted in financial exposure and cash flow. Management consulting is obviously very good at looking at those particular problem spaces. So looking at how you can open up areas of your business to generate more free cash flow, or close down certain parts of your business in order to reduce costs in certain areas and supply chain and things like that. So management consulting was really beneficial with respect to really understanding why who are now my customers, why they make the decisions they make and on what terms.
Yeah.
But again, to your point around education, it was a great training ground to teach me a lot of core business principles that I did not learn in an academic setting. So learning how to do things like modeling, build PowerPoints, work really quickly in Excel without a mouse. I mean, all of the things that to a non-business person are like, are you serious? But really matter, right? You need to have that quantitative background and the ability.
Relationships too. They're so important.
Exactly. I'm not really a big drinker myself, but you learn how to pick wine in a consulting job, and you know how to entertain people and how to build and maintain those relationships over time.
Yeah.
And I'm really fortunate to say that over the course of my career, since having left management consulting, left Deloitte, I've continued to nurture those relationships, and other folks that I work with have nurtured those relationships. So I have a lot of really trusted mentors and people that I can call and ask for advice, and hopefully we'll work with again in the future because of all the time that we spent together.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that what's interesting about your kind of journey, and the question I'm going to ask here is a similar question I ask a lot of other guests, is most people that go into management consulting either stick around in management consulting or go work for other corporations, but they don't become entrepreneurs.
Sure.
Such a different skill set. It's good to have both, obviously, but whole different level of risk and the type of person that you are. At what point did you realize or think that maybe this path isn't for me, and I want to become an entrepreneur and build something.
Yeah. So the first thing I'll say to that is it took a lot to get me to do it.
Yeah.
Historically speaking, I'm probably talking about out both sides of my mouth right now when I say this. It's hard for me to believe it now, but the reality is I've always been very risk averse when it comes to taking risk in my career. I was incredibly happy as a management consultant. I loved it, and I saw myself on partner track and enjoying that, and this is great. But while I was at Deloitte, I had the opportunity to actually leave and be a part of an upstart boutique consulting firm, which brought me to Chicago.
Yeah.
And that I was still really young, but it gave me visibility into the entrepreneurial world and the reality that taking that bull by the horns really does let you chart your own course and provide you with a higher upper bound potentially financially, but also a lot of control over the way that you're able to live your life and structure your day.
Especially if you're a management consultant, because you're traveling all the time.
Right, you're traveling all the time, and I knew that I wanted to settle down a bit and that wasn't going to last forever. But while I was a part of this kind of upstart firm here in Chicago, the founding partners had an opportunity for liquidity where they were bought out by private equity. There was a frothy period in 2015-16 where a lot of boutique healthcare consultancies were being bought by private equity or larger consultancies.
Yep.
So we were really a part of that marketplace activity. And that also showed me what it's like to build something and then transact and see a real transaction. It's nothing but luck, and luck really does play a role in a lot of things in your life. And I think in business, a lot of times what we're trying to do is minimize the importance of luck or happenstance, and you're trying to make things sustainable and logical. But in this particular situation, I had a dear friend from undergrad who is a biomedical engineer by training, working at the at Intuitive Surgical and the Da Vinci robot.
Okay.
And he had an idea for a startup. So he started calling me, and we started kind of, going back and forth at night, moonlighting on what this concept could look like. And he was really just leveraging the knowledge base that I had built about how healthcare provider operations work and what their IT platforms look like, and boring back office stuff, but interesting to us. And so I had never really considered joining him in the startup journey, but the more time we spent together, the more real this idea felt. And Matt, who I have, the utmost respect for, he's brilliant, just very, very fast learner, good leader, dear friend. He kind of tricked us and applied to Techstars, which is a large accelerator program in New York City.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was run by Alex Sisgold, who's now on his own at 2048 Ventures. He's
Has to be my brother's wife.
right. So, the apples don't fall far from the tree in this world. Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, wait, I want to pause you here for a second. One thing I do want to mention is you mentioned being a little bit of risk averse up front.
Sure.
You know what image popped in my head? Us climbing
And not putting gear in for that whole pitch.
we were doing the saddle climbing.
Yeah.
And you're like 50 feet above me, and you're like, start climbing. I'm like, there's no gear.
Yeah, I did. I forgot to put gear in on that entire pitch, which doesn't sound very risk averse. But if you also think about it, I think one reason why we decided to simul climb was because it actually was due to risk aversion.
Yeah.
It was going to be more dangerous for us to pitch out every single pitch.
Yeah.
And then have to get down the mountain in the dark.
Yeah.
Rather than make the judgment call that we're strong enough to simul climb, and it's actually safer for us to move fast. And moving fast in mountains is oftentimes a proxy for safety.
Fast and light, which we'll talk about your second venture at some point.
Absolutely. So we got into this accelerator program. We went up to New York City to really pressure test whether or not we were going to work as a team and what the business had in terms of legs. And frankly, within 48 hours of spending time at the accelerator, it was clear to me that this is what I was going to be doing.
Yeah.
I can't tell you exactly why. Just probably the dynamism, the ability to really build something from 0 to 1 on your own, the scrappiness that we had to have, and frankly, the response we were getting from the market. Well, it was a product positioned at gastroenterologists, and when we would go to GIs and talk to them about what we were doing, they were just so excited.
Yeah.
And seeing that excitement on anyone's face is magnetic.
Yeah.
And I wanted more of that. And so I found that running a business not only satiated a lot of my needs to feel good about myself from an external perception, which is not the best thing to say about yourself, but it's important to know that it's important to you.
Yeah.
But also staying really busy all the time, being busy, but also being busy working on something that you truly care about,
Yeah.
that could potentially benefit your family downstream, is a really good feeling, and it makes it seem like a good use of time.
Is that an amazing feeling where you're like, oh, this is where I belong? Like you were in the business world, you were successful, but then you're like, you actually found a specific niche within the business world. You're like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah, it was really cool, and it also gave me the opportunity to do things I never would have had the opportunity to do as a management consultant. Yeah, I just remember in that first 3 months living in New York, our product had hardware. We met these really cool Israeli hardware designers in Brooklyn, like in the Navy Yard. They had this lab in the Navy Yard with all these 3D printers. And we went there, we sat down, and we were doing the, architectural style schematics of what our hardware would look like. And they were 3D printing prototypes and delivering it to our crappy apartment in Bushwick. And doing all that hands-on work where we're literally creating something from nothing, not just software, but something you can hold in your hands, I never had that on my bingo card. And it was just a really cool experience. I mean, I'm not a professional hardware designer, but having the opportunity to do it for my own purposes to help my business was really cool. And again, I come back to this all the time, but I never think I'm almost never the smartest person in the room. But it's more interesting when you're not. And that is one of the coolest parts about the venture-funded startup world is these brilliant people that, although you may not all be working on the same problem, you're all working on these problems for more or less the same reasons.
Yeah.
And getting to share in that creation of knowledge and also learn from all the people around you it's amazing, and one of my favorite parts of them.
So what do you think? You say you're not the smartest person in the room oftentimes, but you like to surround yourself with really bright people, which is a great leadership quality. What do you think is your greatest quality as an entrepreneur?
I think over the last few years, resilience is a big one that you need to have. So the ability to kind of get through the tough times and the troughs. Yeah, I haven't always been good at that, and I still struggle with it, but I'm able to get through them. And we can talk, ad nauseum about that. But otherwise, I think it really does come down to a lot of soft skills. Yeah. It's the ability to see in the people that you're working with what they need and how you can open doors for them.
Yeah.
And I like to think of myself as a player coach in many sensibilities, where although historically I may just want to do the thing soup to nuts myself and just be at my desk and build the model and get it done.
Yeah.
That's usually not the best way to do something when you have a smart team. It's usually to optimize the ability of your team members to actually do the best at their job. And so whether or not that means raising money to fund the company such that they have the tools they need to be successful, or if that means blocking and tackling a number of colleagues at a customer site to ensure that they're able to get you the data and the feedback that you need. It's all of that come down to a lot of relationship management and making sure that you have clear and defined next steps and goals from a planning perspective. So again, it's kind of like, I hate to go back to the soft skills all the time, but I think that largely is reflective of a lot of my success, is just the ability to build and maintain these relationships that allow doors to open.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think that is the greatest skill you can have as somebody who's building a business, right? Especially as the business scales. Okay, so go back to Techstars. You kind of had this aha moment where like, this is where I belong. Techstars is a cool place to kind of get started. You get a lot of good backing there. So talk about that venture, and also just think through kind of like how you're building your business now and the differences. So because we're going to jump to that eventually.
Sure. Yeah. Virgo, the name of the first company I co-founded. Again, it was a product that was used by gastroenterologists and endoscopists, and is a nascent AI play where we were building computer vision tools on top of imaging data from gastroenterology, so colonoscopies, that way. Looking back on it, the fact that we were building an AI company in 2016-17 is mind-blowing to me, because now it's table stakes. It's just like the nature of the game. But obviously that provided a lot of ground truth for what I'm doing now. And so coming back into industry, building a company that's using AI, having had experience doing that as a startup is obviously tremendously beneficial. But there are obviously market differences between the way that I'm building my new business now than the way that we built our business in the past. And all of those differences come from from learned experience and failure. Okay. There are a lot of different ways to build a startup. There are a lot of different ways to build a business or a small business. Not all small businesses are startups. Not all startups are small businesses, right? You can bootstrap and self-fund it. You can fund it on debt. You can go to capital markets.
Yeah.
And in each of those scenarios, before you choose, you have to understand why you would go to one or the other.
Yeah.
And why, if you're acquiring capital from an external party, why they would give that to you. So if you're building a venture funded business, you have to have the conviction as an operator that your business will be worth billions of dollars, because frankly, that's all a VC wants.
Yeah.
Their goal is to return a lot of capital to their LPs. And so they're looking for 10, 20, 40 plus X exits. If your business can't scale to that point, it's not likely going to impress a VC.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You can still have a wonderful business that isn't venture funded, that can grow to that. But at the same,
But that's the sexy thing, right?
that's the sexy thing. Yeah. Now we truly believe that our business could scale to be of that level. Now, at the same time, we took an incredibly conservative fundraising approach, where likely, maybe because we were first-time founders, maybe because we were working in a regulated space, there's a lot of reasons, macroeconomic factors aside, why we never raised a ton of money.
Yeah.
But one main reason why we didn't raise a ton of money is because we didn't want to. We did not want to dilute the cap table early on to have a ton of working capital. Rather, we chose to bring in smaller rounds of capital, exhaust that against achievable but difficult milestones, and raise more.
Yeah.
Now, when I was in my 20s, that's okay. I can share an apartment with 3 guys.
Yeah.
I can eat macaroni and cheese a lot. I don't have kids. As you get older, your lifestyle requirements change.
Absolutely.
And your ability to accommodate the stress of financial hardship is lessened.
Yeah.
I also believe that if you're a venture capitalist or a stakeholder in a startup, you want your founders to be in a mentally and physically healthy space such that they can actually build a business successfully. That's really hard when you're dealing with student loan debt, credit card debt, an angry fiance because you are worried about paying rent.
And trying to run every aspect of the business because you can't hire.
Meanwhile, you're trying to run an aspect of the business and you're cash poor and can't recruit good talent. So unfortunately, money unlocks talent.
Yeah.
It unlocks the ability for you to deprioritize lifestyle constraints like paying your bills because you don't have to worry about them.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that allows you to be more focused, come to work with a good attitude, get better rest, sleep better, and build a better business. And so
I will talk about the mental health aspect
Sure.
of what is required to be successful and happy at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. So you can have a successful business, I guess, and if you're not happy, then it's not worth it.
Yeah. And it's like more money, more problems, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a tried and true stereotype. It's cliche, but it's a cliche because it's true, right? It doesn't just unlock everything for you. If you raise more money, you need to hit a longer home run.
Yeah.
Because your dilution is probably more extreme.
Yeah.
And if you want to see capital on the back end of that, you need to ensure that you're preserving enough runway on your cap table to allow for that liquidity. So there are pros and cons to each, but it came to a point where working in a regulated environment with high capital requirements was less and less feasible. And it was less and less enjoyable for me. And so I knew that if I were to go back into the startup world and operate a company, if it was going to be backed by external investors, I would want to do so in a way that provides a very healthy amount of working capital from the start in the formation of the company to not only allow selfishly me to not have to worry about paying my bills and not taking my kid out of daycare and being able to do the things that we've already established as important to us between my wife and I. And it is a family decision when you decide to start a company. I mean, my wife was part of that decision at every step of the way. But also, to your other point, it allows you to access the talent that you need to actually be successful growing a business. Because if you're an A player, you want to hire A players. If you're an A player hiring B players, those B players are going to hire D players.
Yeah.
You want to always be surrounding yourself with people that will do a better job at that which they're tasked at than you would ever do.
Yeah.
and that's typically expensive.
Yeah.
So decide to raise a little bit more money this time around.
Got it. So going back to Vertigo, the first company. So at what point, you kind of mentioned that at some point it's starting to get stressful and we've talked offline a lot about this, and I was kind of climbing with you at the time where there was a transition away from the company. When did it start? You kind of saw the writing on the wall and you're like, this is not the place for me.
Yeah. So I think the first thing I'll say is when you start a business and you put pretty much everything you have into it,
Yeah.
it becomes more of how you define yourself than you ever expect it to be without you even knowing it.
Yeah.
And so I didn't realize how much of my self-worth and self-definition was wrapped up in Virgo until I was no longer there,
Yeah.
which was really shocking. I'll also say that we managed to get through a few major macroeconomic sentinel events that were pretty traumatic. We're selling into healthcare systems, selling into operating rooms, and then COVID happens. And COVID happened right when we were about to raise our Series A. So that became relatively untenable. Business operations really shut down. We had to do salary cuts and, flatline folks' salaries and ask people to furlough themselves. And it was just really gnarly and not different than most other businesses in the time, but that doesn't make your day-to-day any easier. And so getting through that and working through that was exhausting. But at the time, I think the way that Matt led us through that and that the way the team responded was actually super inspiring. And as weird as it may sound, it was kind of a motivator to find more gas in the tank.
Okay.
I don't know if I would have been there as long as been at Virgo for as long as I was if we didn't have COVID. I might have burned out faster because I actually saw so many amazing things that the team was capable of when we were trying to keep the train on the tracks. And the second thing was Silicon Valley Bank. And I mean, to talk about decisions things I'm not doing the same as I did at Virgo, treasury diversification.
I sure remember
certainly
that.
one of them.
I do remember that.
Yeah.
You had all your money
In Silicon Valley Bank.
Yeah.
And so Matt and I are at a conference where we're talking about 5 years of progress at Virgo, all this happy story. And the night before we're giving that fireside chat, our bank account is worth nothing and we're supposed to run payroll that Sunday. And so it was really difficult emotionally and mentally. Obviously that ship was righted by the end of the weekend and all our money was back on Monday and everything was good.
US
But
government
thank you to the U.S. government.
bailing out another bank.
I know. Yeah. But it was super stressful.
Yeah.
And so throughout all of that, we were starting to make a pivot from direct provider sales to opening up a marketplace with the pharmaceutical industry in life sciences. And that was a logical next step in our business, but it was also forced timing-wise due to COVID to a certain extent because they were still spending money, providers weren't. Frankly, I have a lot of, emotional plaque, and I don't know if regret's the right word, but there are a lot of things that I would have liked to do differently in pivoting the business into that marketplace. And over time, as my role changed from one, and the company was scaling, as my role changed from one of really going from 0 to 1 to scaling and being your tried and true chief revenue officer, where we had a fleet of amazing salespeople and customer success personnel. I was taking reading a lot of Salesforce reports, taking a lot of screenshots, dashboards, and being the whipping boy for the board on a revenue goal when you are also responsible for bringing in all of the revenue before you started building a commercial team didn't feel good to me. And it also became pretty evident to me that I did not want to be a chief revenue officer forever.
Yeah.
That is a exalted role across industries. In healthcare, it's a really difficult one. A mentor of mine kind of told me, he's like, hey, the longer you sit as a CRO, the more it becomes a scarlet letter.
Yeah.
And it forced me to look around and understand and be honest with myself about what I really liked. And what I really liked was solving problems acutely and building new solutions for them, and not exactly scaling a sales team and just managing a fleet of salespeople. It's a catch-22 because I absolutely loved working with the people I worked with. They were incredible, and we're still in touch, and they're great colleagues of mine. But that role specifically was definitely not right for me anymore. And the fact of the matter is, you spend so much time with your co-founders that they become family, and families fight. And I'm really proud to say that Matt and I got along incredibly well for almost the entirety of our relationship together.
Yeah.
And at a certain point in time, we started thinking and feeling differently about the direction of the business. And I was not able to, frankly, work within the framework that the board and Matt wanted. And so it was no longer working out. I was coming to work in a bad mood.
Yeah.
My mental health was not only suffering as a result, but my suffering mental health was impacting my ability to proceed at work
Yeah.
in the way that the business deserved. And so it became pretty evident to pretty much everyone that it was time to go. And so I left Virgo maybe almost close to 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
It's a long time. And have kind of, done a couple of different things from there, but in the last 3-6 months have started a new business. So everything happens for a reason, I think. But it was one of the hardest decisions to make, where even though it was obvious to me that it wasn't working anymore, it felt like a divorce or leaving your child or something. Like
Yeah.
well,
It is your baby. I mean, they call it the baby, but from my perspective, kind of seeing you on that side, I remember the writing was on the wall when we had conversations while we were climbing. And it might have taken a little bit longer for you to get out than you initially wanted, probably, right? But it seemed like the right thing. And from everything that I've read about entrepreneurship and building successful businesses, first of all, most people I feel like that do get into entrepreneurship and actually build a successful venture typically do it in their 40s or 50s because you have all that experience, right? So yeah, let's talk about kind of the pivot, because what you're doing is really cool. Your backers are really cool. Talk about like the past 12 to 24 months and how you got to the place that you're at now.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about what I have the opportunity to work on now. I feel really lucky that everything transpired the way it did, even though there were some difficulties along the way. So after Virgo, I spent a little bit of time on vacation, just doing me and getting solid and rebuilding my mental health. My wife and I had a kid. So we have a 13-month-old now. She's amazing. So being able to be super present throughout the pregnancy was great, and just really leaning into the family side of the equation was awesome. But I kicked the tires doing like freelance go-to-market consulting for healthcare companies. So only companies that I felt passionate about the way in which they were looking at the market and the way and what products they were building. But again, I'm going back to the smart people thing. Like, it's a great way to put yourself in front of people that are probably smarter than you, or know a lot more about a certain thing than you do, and learn from them. So although they may have gotten a lot of benefit from working with me, and I hope I was a valuable addition to their teams, I learned so much from them. And it was also a cool way of looking at deal flow in industry. What kinds of companies are being built? How are folks using artificial intelligence? What problems are top of mind? So keeping a really close ear to the ground on what was actually meaningful to buyers and meaningful to VCs in the current world. And so it kept my tool set sharp. It allowed me to expose myself to a lot of different aspects of healthcare that heretofore I hadn't had that exposure to. And one of those companies was working on operating room efficiency tools. So basically putting cameras and sensors all over an operating room to help send alerts and automate data collection to make operations happen faster, and all the downtime that happens between surgical events happen faster. So you can hopefully end up with so much extra time you can schedule more surgeries. And that was fascinating to me, but there were a lot of headwinds against those businesses for a lot of reasons. But I got really interested in how to optimize surgeries, interestingly enough. And so maybe it was about 6 months ago, maybe more now, a venture capital group out of New York City, Redesign Health, they contacted me about a CEO role at a portfolio company. And unlike a lot of externally recruited CEOs, it was a very nascent play. So I wasn't taking over a company that had already built a product. They basically said, we have this idea for a product that we've done all the due diligence in the marketplace. Here it is. Take a look at it. We think there is a massive total addressable market here. From all of the interviews we've done, and they did an amazing job with diligencing industry here, talking to the right people, working with the right health systems, understanding the pain points and looking at them the right way.
Yeah.
We believe that there's a really healthy business at venture scale that we can build in just providing tools to health systems that allow them to see the right patients that are referred in and get more patients in the OR. And at first blush, it was pretty exciting to me. What was really exciting on top of that was the fact that Mayo Clinic was also somewhat responsible for coming up with the concept and had partnered with Redesign Health to fund the company.
Yeah.
So it's a Mayo Clinic spin out. So we have access to the thoughtware, the data, the tooling that Mayo Clinic has brought to market,
Yeah.
as well as just the people there, right?
Yeah.
So being able to liaise with end users and surgeons on a daily basis. I was on the phone with them today about data, and I'm talking to them again later about their Epic instance. And doing all this close co-building activity allows you to handicap a lot of the risks you take as a startup developer without a partner like that, because you have to, at a certain point, guess about what your customer wants. Here, we can guess, put it in front of them, and if they say we want something else, we can build it before we actually go to market writ large, right? So the point is to handicap that risk and get it right. And so when they started talking about it, and we started talking about whether or not it'd be the right fit, we spent a few months getting to know each other, and loved all the people at Redesign, loved the team at Mayo Clinic, loved the concept. I guess one other thing I'll say about the concept, and one reason why I liked it, is because it is what we call in the startup world a picks and shovels application.
Yeah.
Right. Like I said, I don't have the academic pedigree to be building the next great software tool for genomics or molecular biology. That would be awesome, but I wasn't great at science in 8th grade, so I was stunted.
At least you know your limitations.
Yeah, I know my limitation.
Matters.
But there are so many people that make the wheels turn at any organization that no one's ever built a tool to help out. Someone who's 30 years working at a company, who knows everything about that company, who does his or her entire job with a pen and a piece of paper, and everyone else has $1 billion of software sitting behind the screen for them to use. Who's to say that they don't deserve help? What if you gave all of those back office people tools that made their jobs that much easier and that much more efficient?
Yeah.
How much synergy and how much value can you create just from doing that? I mean, the tried and true example, this has been the case since time immemorial, right? Like, this isn't a technology only thing. Think about the gold rush.
Yeah.
This is an example I use a lot. So it's the cliche thing I'm going to say now. I say
We got to go for the gold, but everybody's going for the gold.
Everyone's going to the gold. If you go to San Francisco,
Yeah.
you look around and you don't see a lot of buildings that are named after people that found gold and struck gold.
Yeah.
And you have Sutter Health, like John Sutter, great. Sutter's
Yeah.
Hill, that's awesome. I don't know how much money John Sutter actually made. He probably made more leasing land than he did finding gold. I don't know that. Maybe we'll cut that from the podcast. But
Sounds about right.
the biggest single occupancy building in San Francisco by square footage is Levi's
Okay.
headquarters.
Yeah, the pants.
Because they put jeans on every single person that rolled through California.
You remember that's yeah.
Gold.
That's what's amazing about being successful. It doesn't have to be super eye popping.
Right.
The healthcare is such a massive space, huge, and all you gotta do is find that one little vertical, just to make somebody's life easier, more efficient, help them make some money. Hey, it's it could be $1 billion idea as long as you implement it and operate it the right way.
Absolutely. And to your point around implementation and looking at things the right way, there's been a unfortunate history in the last 10, 15 years in digital health where people bring to market tools that are really freaking cool. Wearables, for example. Now, they're cool. They're eye-popping. It feels like there's immediate value there. But when you actually look at it from a financial ROI perspective, it's really hard to calculate the true ROI and value that you've driven to the bottom line from that product. So there's tons of products in market. You're going to the CIO of a health system. You're saying, oh, yes, we'll allow you to, this assay does this, that, or the other thing, and it's better at diagnostics. Okay, well, how does that help me lately, right? Yeah. How does that impact my balance sheet? How does that impact my ability to increase free cash flows? How does that increase my ability to accommodate all of these loss-leading subspecialties in clinic? One more reason why the idea that we're building right now is so exciting to me is that it is so clear how ROI is created. And it's so clear if it doesn't work, right? If our tool works, you do more surgery, patients get surgery faster, you have fewer complications, fewer readmission rates, surgeons do more of what they're best at, the health system makes more revenue, they're able to subsidize more charity care. And they're able to accommodate more patients. Full stop. If that doesn't happen, the product didn't work. So not only does it make it simpler for me to evaluate our success on real terms, it makes it simpler for everyone to assess that. It also makes it far more appetizing to a buyer, where I don't have to craft some labyrinthine soft ROI story of, well, if we manage the spend in these areas for 2 years, and 2 years after your pilot, we'll pull up and we can show you ROI. No. If you're doing more surgery next month after implementing our tool set, we're on the right track. If not, then we need to have a conversation about how to fix it. Or whether or not the product's ever going to work.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
So you're in the earlier stages of it. You raised a round.
Yep.
Right. And talk just real briefly about the things that you're doing differently now than what you were doing at Virgo.
Yeah. So the core thing that is different here is capitalization. So we started with a $4 million seed round. Which gives us the amplitude to exist in market early for a long time without having to raise money. Or if things are going really well, it gives us the amplitude to double down and reinvest that capital in growth from both a business development and a team perspective and raise money sooner. Now,
how many different banking institutions is that $4 million spread across?
Yeah, so luckily the round was pretty captive. So our 2 investors are Reason Health and Mayo Clinic. It's great to have Mayo Clinic on the cap table as a stakeholder. And right now I am working with a smaller bank as well as an institutionally relevant powerhouse bank. So I'm split across. My treasury is diversified into 2 banks with 2 accounts in each bank. You know, you can look in the notes and you can get my pins to get into the checking account. So you all have access to it. But yeah, so we're diversified there. And so that's one major thing we're doing differently, right? Is just keeping rainy day funds available in a bank account in case there is a infrastructure level banking event that prevents our ability from accessing one or the other of those banking partners. It's also good to have more options, right? Like startup banking groups are typically good at making introductions to other folks that deploy capital or debt. And so having more people in the Rolodex to access when those times come is healthy and more perspectives in the room. But I mean, the biggest thing that we're doing differently is starting with more gas in the tank. And that not only allows us to pay better salaries to folks, of course, equity is always really important, but I think the materiality of equity is being demystified for everyone nowadays. So my big word of warning and encouragement to folks that are interested in working at a startup is to don't be swayed with rose-colored lenses when a potential, startup founder says, I'm giving you all this equity. Like, remember that the vast majority of startups don't work out. Also remember that investment terms can be really nasty towards those employee shareholders, such that even in the event of a big exit, sometimes you might get diluted so far that your equity isn't worth that much. So always know what's important to you and bring your conviction around the business to that decision. But never, ever count on that equity being worth anything. Think of it as a nice to have. It's like investing in a watch. I truly believe that you really should not be investing in watches the same way you put money in the S&P 500, though people do it. If it can make you money down the line, that's awesome. But like, look at the volatility on the gray market. Like, you never know. So buy it because you have the conviction, because you love it. And it's a nice side effect if it's worth something. Now, I'm doing this as a CEO because I have the conviction that's going to work out, and I have all the belief in the world that it will, and I will tell anyone that. But things happen.
As you should. Obviously, you're being realistic. So on a final few points, one thing I want to talk about is AI.
Sure.
A big buzzword. You talked about your previous business, Virgo, how back in, was it 2015, 2016, you guys were kind of making that play without even knowing you were making that play. Now it's like, if you talk about investing, you have to say AI, right? Because it's the biggest thing right now and possibly a little bit of a bubble. So talk about your perspective on AI, how you're incorporating in your business, and what you just see as the future for AI in healthcare.
Yeah, so AI has been around for a long time now, especially in healthcare. People have been talking about it for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think we first all started talking about it in the early 2010s, specifically in probably radiology and dermatology.
Okay.
And there are articles about it in, Popular Mechanic, but also like Time and People magazine, maybe not People, Time.
Yeah.
About, oh, wow, artificial intelligence can read this radiology report, this x-ray, and tell me that I have a broken leg, right?
Yeah.
And the way that works is you feed the model tons of images of broken legs, tons of images of not broken legs, and it starts to be able to make these binary determinations. And then you can make it more and more and more complex with more compute, more images, and more variables,
Yeah.
and more algorithmic work. At Virgo, our thesis was those machine learning or computer vision tools for diagnostics can exist across medical subspecialties unless you have training data across all those subspecialties. Colonoscopy is the most frequently performed diagnostic interventional procedure.
Yeah.
It's also one that is like a platonic use case for computer vision. So our thesis was, let's collect all these videos of gastroenterology procedures and then create these models and this data set that can then be useful to people creating these algorithms and these products downstream.
Okay.
So that was also picks and shovels play. So we were coming out of the box saying, we don't want to build the algorithms, but you all need data. You can't build them without the data.
Yeah.
Right? It's like the gas station. We want to be the gas station for AI.
Yeah.
Right? Data still remains to be a central component of this. There are great companies that are being created around commodity data that you can use for training. Obviously, we know that Meta had a big acquisition of scale
Yeah.
because of training data. But at the end of the day, a lot of these tools haven't hit the market the way people thought they did. There's a lot of hype, and the hype cycles comes down to adoption, right? People want to talk to humans at the end of the day. They still do, at least today. Radiologists, and no one wants to be summarily replaced by a
It's funny.
computer.
I drive a Tesla now, and Grok is in it,
Oh, yeah.
and I could talk to Grok through it.
Okay.
And we do have conversations. Honestly,
You just got to be careful to your point,
like there's only so much you could have.
There's only so much you could have before it starts really brainworming you. And a lot of times, at the end of the day, like, especially in regulated spaces, these judgment calls have to be right. And if it's not right, you have to have someone to go to and say, this happened, is wrong. And like, you have to be able to solve it. And you can't talk back to a computer, and a computer can't hug you, right?
Not yet.
No. So a lot of these tools haven't gone to market as quickly, but in the agentic space, so using artificial intelligence and generative AI to go out and do things like get me X or do what, write this email.
Yeah.
That has accelerated, just at light speed. And so I'm really looking at the way we're using artificial intelligence at Corvus from the perspective of, how do I solve a problem? It's not that we're going to use AI to just use AI for the sake of AI because investors want to see AI. Frankly, if you do that, your compute expenses are going to be really high, and it's going to be more expensive to run your business.
Yeah.
And you're bringing a bazooka to a knife fight. I want to bring the right size tool to the right size problem. So if a part of my product needs to go out and obtain a prior authorization for a patient to see if they're actually going to have their surgery covered, now we can have generative AI actually go out and make that query to the payer. Or you can have Gen AI go out, fetch all of the documents that live within the electronic medical record about a patient and syndicate that information into a more digestible format for an end user and say, these are the 5 most important bullet points about the surgery that you're asking us about, right? So use the right tool for the job. Sometimes all you need is an if-then statement. If patient bone is on bone, they probably need surgery.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily need an artificial intelligence tool to tell you that.
Yeah.
Because it's obvious that if you're running bone on bone in your knee, you need knee surgery.
Yeah.
This is not meant to be medical advice. I'm not a board certified surgeon. But you see where it's going.
Yeah.
So the world of artificial intelligence has unlocked our ability to do things that before now required multiple systems, multiple people, and multiple cost centers. Now you bring that all into one place and you automate it, makes it more efficient, makes everyone's lives easier, more effective, helps you streamline the data in a technology-centered world. And it makes the people that you have using those tools better at their job. It's an optimizer.
Yeah, I mean, AI is exciting, and we're integrating in our system, and it's all about, like you said, data.
Yeah.
Understanding how data flows. What's exciting about somebody building a company now is, with now being in the AI world, is there's no like legacy infrastructure, but you have to restructure. You can build a platform that's fully integrated right off the bat. So we're dealing with some of that reconfiguration right now, and we're not a massive company.
Yep.
Still dealing with it. So what you're doing is exciting. I've loved kind of being a part of that journey from where you were before to what you're doing now. And, as we kind of
Can't do it without friends.
Absolutely.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked a lot about relationships today, but having those personal relationships, having those there when you need them most, I can unimpeachably say is one of the most important things from a mental health perspective.
Yes. Good friends, and being able to go out and do some climbing and get some outlet out. So through physical exercise is sometimes just what the doctor ordered.
Absolutely.
Stressful day.
Yep. 100%.
Well, I'm praying for a big exit. And
Thanks, Ilya.
You know where to go.
Appreciate it. Yes. Yes. Once I need some help, I will call you. And we've all,
Sounds good.
absolutely.
All right, man. It was good seeing you.
Good to see you too.
Yeah.
Thank you.